Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. It's 15:13. The meeting is duly constituted. First order of business, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second? Any changes?
Just the time.
Thank you. Yeah, good catch. 3 p.m. This, of course, being the agenda for the Council Strategy Committee meeting. Okay, so no changes. All in favor and opposed, that carries. There are no public participants, and we'll go to adoption of minutes of previous meetings, starting with the meeting of May 2nd, 2017. I wasn't there for this one. Ron, you were in the chair. You want to drive this?
It's perfect.
Okay. Will you move approval of these minutes? Thanks. Yep. And a second, Fred. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. And the minutes of the January 16th meeting. I would only request just a suggestion more for formatting than anything, and that is at the attendance section, say when the person arrived. I know it's in the body, but I see they do that at Metro. So like this, Peter. So Councillor Jim Hughes arrived at 4:16 p.m.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yep.
I mean, it's minor.
At the top instead of in the body?
Well, no, I'd say leave it in the body too.
well.
Yeah, leave it in the body as well.
Should be in the body.
Yeah, but just so that you can at a glance see what.
Okay.
It's just a nicety, but it's nicety. Okay, so that's all I had. Anybody else? Let's just check that that's true. Yeah. Okay, all in favor of approving these minutes and opposed, that carries. And we'll move on now to business arising. I believe there will be none. And unfinished business, there is none. And so we'll go straight to reports. The first being the core services review, starting on page 7. Nai, this is your baby.
So this is coming back to council again. It was reviewed at the April 4th CFC meeting. There's a few things I'd like to point out in the report that to fulfill the resource allocation requirements of the CSLR, the core service level review, would require 7.6 full-time equivalents. Over the last years, the resource allocation has remained relatively constant at 4.6 FTE. I've had a discussion with staff, and these are the most critical areas, the areas that concern staff with respect to resource allocation deficiencies. The only change to this, I would like to comment on the invasive species control. We received a report yesterday from the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council, and they have proposed a $7,200 ask to eradicate or to treat invasive species for the first time this year. So if council wishes to reallocate that 0.05, I would suggest culvert inspections, valve exercising, and valve maintenance. However, I leave that to council.
So are you saying that could be done by contract labor or by the Invasive Species Council themselves?
Correct. Yeah.
That's more, no, I guess that represents 0.05 FTEs, that kind of number. So it's about a similar number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Council. Welcome, Norm. We just got going. We actually waited for you.
For the delay.
No problem.
A couple of questions just before we get too far along, and this one's for Pam. Using round numbers, and I know the numbers are in here, it's mid-80s for the fully loaded number for the extra FTE and approximately 15 for the fully loaded truck. Let's call it $100,000 all in-ish. Could you refresh me if that was in your original budget that we saw?
Yes, the FTE was in there with a start date of May 1st. The mayor, I did get your notice about bringing it forward, so we can discuss that tonight, and I've quantified what that will be. And I've also added the truck to the version of the budget we'll be looking at tonight. So both those items are in the
so
budget.
In is in. And again, this is for the CFO. Somewhere in all this, I'm confused about a 0.2 of an employee, because, and I'll ask her to reflect while I blither on for a second, because I think in your draft numbers, when you talked about the FTE, and I may be making up the numbers so you get the thread of it, I thought we were at 4.6 or 4.8, and you rounded it up for something or other. And I'm trying to weigh that against the page 23 of the report, which shows that we have total 4.8 FTE. I guess I'm just trying to make sure that I've got the right number.
Reconcile the number.
Yeah, and it's like a 0.2 different or something like that. And I think, Pam, you explained what it was last time, and I think it may have involved Donna or not, I don't remember.
So to the numbers in the report, these are actual hours recorded in the ledger. So
Okay.
if a person is off on sick, or if a person's off on WCB, that'll affect this
So it's a
FTE
lower
value.
number.
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
So
right.
the actual allocation is 4.8, and Pam will speak to the additional 0.2.
Right, the
Thank
additional
you.
point two was an existing public works employee who wishes to go full-time, so that's in the current budget as well. So we have the additional one FTE, 1.0, and then a 0.2 to take the part-time person to full-time. And those costs are in the budget that we'll be looking at tonight.
So-
And we're in the last budget. So
so-
it's basically an increase of 1.2. 0.2 increase for the
1.2.
existing employee,
Mhm.
and 1 for the new full-time.
1.2, so we end up with, and just give me the right number here, is it 6 or is it 5.8?
It would be,
6.
6, yeah.
6.
6 plus the public works
6 is the
manager.
number,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry,
I'll never bring this up again.
I thought we were currently at about 4.6 in terms of the report.
Well, the
There's little
report
half
was,
bodies running around here.
the report was based on 2015 values. So in 2015, the number was 4.6.
Right?
I think that might have been because the person who was being the part-time was probably working closer to 3 days a week.
Oh, I see, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay,
So then
gotcha.
she permanently became 0.8 of an FTE,
Yeah.
4 days a week,
Okay,
and now it's gonna go
right.
up to
Gotcha,
1. Yeah,
gotcha.
it is, those part-time
Yeah.
ones really mess up your
Okay.
FTEs.
So this is just a preamble part here.
Yes.
So to recap then, we're talking all in 6 people is the ask.
Correct.
Yes, good. And Pam's already built that and the truck already into this.
Mhm.
And we're going from there.
Okay, that's a good clarification. So can you actually just clarify now? We sort of got 2 reports here. Is one an addendum to the first one? There's one dated January 12th, stated to be for this meeting, and then there's one dated March 25th last
Correct.
year.
So the March 25th one went to the April 4th council meeting.
Okay, so that's just historical record.
Correct.
Although I think, well, certainly I will have a few questions relating to that, which I may even have raised at the time. But okay, so are we considering only the first one, or are we considering them all together?
The intent was to consider all together.
Fine, okay, good. Okay, so just to clarify on what Ron has said, you're saying that we should be ideally at 7.6 FTE, and if council was to adopt the recommendation to add 1 full-time equivalent and their support, we'd be at 6. So a lot closer to
The 7.
full
Correct.
complement.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, can I, while I'm talking then, can I just ask you, 0.3 FTE to maintain 70-something fire hydrants, is that reasonable?
Yes, very reasonable. That's doing 2 fire hydrants a day and having 2 people work on them.
So you're going
You're-
hours, not individuals. huh?
Once a year?
To bring us up to the legislative standard requires 2 checks per year. Once a year is a complete tear down. The second test is a pressure test fire flow. The fire department does a similar test annually, so if we can coordinate, then it would actually be 2 inspections per year.
Okay, so let me just understand something. So the 365 days in the year, there's 52 weekends, 2 weekend day each, that's that, and 10 holidays. 251 days a year of work days, right?
11 stats, I think.
It ends up 250 is
240.
usually the number.
All right, 250 is the number you use. Okay, so a third of 250 is 83 days. that's over a day per. That's over a day per hydrant. So, but that's twice a.
That's for one employee.
That's for one employee. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
half of that.
yeah.
Because 2 of them are working on
Yeah,
that.
so it's hours, not employees.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sure. So you've
Yeah.
got 2 people doing it twice a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So the math works out.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Okay. What consideration was given to the council and community input, if any? I had some suggestions on service levels, for example, mowing the lawn less at the school.
Yeah, so those would be reductions that we could make in the parks budget. The window boxes, those discretionary items are up to council. If council chooses to eliminate those, then we would reallocate resources.
Well, I think we're looking for recommendations. Well, the window boxes was a suggestion, because that used to be maintained by a community
Volunteers.
group.
Correct.
Yeah. But
So-
it just somehow got subsumed into our work plan.
No, we were approached by the volunteer committee.
Okay, so you know more about it than I
and,
do.
They said basically they can't maintain them anymore. There was that, and there was the highway berms that were
Yeah.
deferred to staff.
I don't know. So as I think I said in my, am I pointing at my memo? As I think I said, thanks. There wasn't a lot. Yeah, yeah,
To be fair, I don't pull out a lot of stuff you quote.
yeah. That's pretty good. Wish I could do that. Okay, so I mean, but that's more a service level type of thing rather than the consideration that the main consideration here is whether this committee recommends to council
The additional FTE.
the additional person.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So changes to discretionary services are completely the purview of council, and if council chooses to add or increase,
yeah. My other concern, concern's probably not in the right word, and that is around the trail maintenance. Are we not expecting some sort of policy recommendation before we decide to undertake trail stuff?
Well, we have, go ahead.
so at the very least, this is a 0.05 increment, and what we're talking about here is just inspections. So part of the biggest problem with Lions Bay is a lack of documentation on inspections and maintenance. If we have a standard policy that says we're going to inspect them once a month or once every 2 months, then that goes a long way towards your defense in any sort of litigation or case. So at the very least, staff think that we should be inspecting
Which means walking the trail.
once a month. That's it.
But we would also have the option to go with a only inspect upon notice of issue.
Yeah.
That is another, yeah, that is definitely another
And
option.
in that case, we would be looking to utilize the services of the volunteers and the trailblazers a little bit more.
And the people who use the trails daily.
For the initial
Oh, I see. Yeah.
heads up, there's an issue here, then we go check, as opposed to having a timeline under which we check. We only check if we're alerted to an issue,
Yeah.
and then we determine what needs to be done.
So we're expecting that in time for this budget, or this year. I don't know if it's a budget issue.
I don't think it's really a budget issue.
Yeah.
No, I mean, unless you wanted to reallocate those 0.05, but
Wow, that's
In-
not very
in-
much time, is it?
in allocating these resources, there were 3 areas that were still deficient, even if we add the
Yeah.
full-time FTE. And that's valve maintenance, culvert and drain inspection, and valve exercising. Those are the 3 really deficient areas that we haven't fully addressed.
So just to speak to this Occupiers Liability Act, regardless of declaration of intent or signage or assumption of liability, does this trump all and say that if it's in your community, you have some responsibility? Is that what that says?
Not exactly. Occupiers Liability Act is more or less a starting point for, hey, if it's your property, you have an obligation to ensure that there aren't things on your property that can cause somebody injury through your own negligence, particularly if people are being allowed to access your property, invited or not. But there's also provisions that provide for protection for municipalities in terms of that act, and I believe there's a new act as well, or with a different provision with respect to trails. But there are provisions which protect municipalities as well, so that provided you have a policy that stipulates that you've taken basic measures, or your policy is that you're only going to inspect upon notice or complaint or whatever the case may be, or you've got a regimen. Once you choose what your policy is going to be, then it's a case of implementation, and if you're negligent in implementing what you said you were going to do, then you can be held liable. But you can't be held liable for making a political decision that we don't have enough budget resources to allocate to doing regular inspections every week, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so it's almost two different things. I do think it's somewhat overdue on that, because as you know very well, people are using the trails regardless, and on a good day you will have 20 to 50 to 100 parties walking on our trails. It's in all the guidebooks, it's on all the websites.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I took the Metro guys down the trail. It was hurtling down with rain. It was a really unpleasant day, and we must have met half a dozen residents, people that I knew from Lions Bay, and half a dozen non-residents. And I said to the guy, it's almost like I pre-arranged it, because one of them spoke about Bear Smart, and one of them was railing about the lack of affordable housing, and I said to the guy, this is all choreographed, you understand? But the point is, it's happened anyway, so that needs to be addressed, and I think it's somewhat on the priorities. But that's not the issue at hand right now. What we're really talking about is the overarching recommendation, right? So let's perhaps, speaking to myself here, stick to that. Anything else? I mean, this is a comprehensive. Just because it's on a paperclip right now doesn't mean I didn't review it. That's just so I can turn like this.
I'm sure you did. I know you did.
I did.
Detail.
The pictures broke up the text.
Yeah, and little quotes, and that's all really sexy. I like the font too, Minai. Very standard font.
There is a Calibri version of this report. I just don't know where it went.
Okay, so are we ready for the question? Not that we have a motion yet, or anything further. I mean, it's pretty cut and dried. I think we've had some sort of heads up that this decision's coming. I think, I'm certainly not going to speak for council, but I know where I stand on it. So the recommendation has to be changed slightly, and that is that the CSC, this body, recommends that council direct the public works manager, because we cannot actually bind council in this meeting. This is just an advisory body. It used to be called Committee of, what did you say? Yeah, Committee of the Whole Council.
Cow.
Now we changed that because nobody here thought that was a good name, so we changed it to the Council Strategy Committee. But it is actually a committee. It's not a council meeting. So I will move that the Council Strategy Committee recommend that council direct the Public Works Manager to post for and hire a full-time public works operator. Note date stipulation at this stage, because that's a budget issue. And that council direct the CFO to secure an additional lease vehicle, when we renew our current lease agreement. Again, no time stipulations. That's a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, good. So when one makes a compelling argument, one gets what one wishes for, apparently. Speaking of which, I don't know if it's next on the agenda. I'll just have to check. Okay, yes it is. So we'll move on to the Mayor's Community Signage Makeover recommendations, which I don't propose to go through in detail. As you can see, this has gone through one round of staff commentary. I was gratified at the lack of vehement opposition and at the general acceptance of some of the ideas. I guess the thing that we're trying to understand at this stage is, do we want to push this forward to ask for a budget recommendation? Is that right, Peter? With details to follow.
I guess so.
So there is a budget number. Pam, if you could remind us what it is again, please.
Signage. Well, there was 25,000. We've rebudgeted.
Well, that's the change from the parking signage, which is a different thing. Some would argue that we reallocate that surplus to parking lot tarring or something. But
Well, actually, no. I think it's important that to hold the standard, when you budget something, and if you don't use all the money, you rebudget it for the same thing. If you want the parking lot, that's a separate budget request.
yeah, well, the budget was
Yeah,
for
I think
parking
for
signage.
transparency.
So signage is probably
Yeah, so
operating
this is a
with.
bit grayer, but I just thought
Yeah.
that it could morph more into community signage. Like if we are rebudgeting, because there is money left over from the $25,000 2017 signage budget. So I'm showing it now as being rebudgeted for this.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so that's about a $15,000 number, and judging by what the parking signage cost, that's about right? For all of this, or most of this, or whatever. So the driver here is, it is a makeover. It's to try and get some sort of consistency of theme and wording. As you'll see, I've tried very hard to avoid words like no and prohibited and so on and so forth. Staff have made some very cogent points. For example, you don't really necessarily want to put signage on a water treatment plant because that might invite vandalism or worse. So, you know, this is somewhat a work in progress. I regret that in some cases our printer decided to redo the formatting, the quite perfect formatting, but it's close enough to my original intent. What do we think?
Myself, I think there's a lot of neat things on it. There's a few issues I kind of wondered about. Do you want to go through them? Or?
Sure. Yeah, now's as good a time as any.
First page is fine. Next one's fine. Oh, just a little sidebar on this one.
What number?
On page 75 of 90. Do you really have aggressive owls out there?
Funnily enough, that's the only wildlife problem I've ever had.
Really?
I knew somebody would flag that, but yeah, we have one or two really aggressive, the big guys
Oh, really?
that sit on branches. They dive bomb you and try and eat your dog. I've only seen 2 bears on the trails, but I've seen lots of owls and had run-ins with them. Now, I don't necessarily think that we should put that on the sign, but it's just funny.
So we should put, don't bring small dogs.
Yeah. Well, they attacked my dog, who weighs 70 pounds.
I mean, you might want to say small dogs might be kept on leash due to eagles or owls or what have you, right? I mean, I almost
So you're going like this, come back!
I had eagles circling, looking at my dog rather longingly.
With great interest.
When I was in the Queen Charlotte's, you know, and people warned me. It's just like, you keep an eye on your dog, keep it close by, because those eagles will take them.
Yeah. Yeah, I read there was an owl took out a dog's eyes, in both eyes. They do it on purpose because that's their MO in North Van a month ago.
Never would have guessed.
Mm.
Anyhow, so that's it.
Anyway, that, yeah, so I mean, whether we warn people about that?
Well, maybe.
The one on page 81 of 90 about the water treatment plant. I know you're trying to be a little more friendly, but to the issue of protecting our treatment plants and whatnot and our water system, I like the strong negative. In other words, keep out, cut out, or stay away. This is not a public access point, or something along the lines of what is there now. I'm quite happy with it. I think we need strong language.
This is the sewage plant, not the water plant, by the way. But
Yeah, oh, sorry, wastewater.
yeah,
Water state.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't have to go retrieve somebody either.
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, the issue here was nobody knows what it is, and the question is, should they? I'm asking. I don't know. I know what I think, but you know, I have been wrong before.
But you like sewage treatment.
Yeah. Well, once I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken.
I'll leave that one alone.
So you're passing on this one?
No? Any thoughts? I mean, it's not the same sort of, not quite the same, I don't think, as people messing with our water treatment plants. Although I don't know sort of what mischief and consequences might follow for somebody who decided they did want to mess with it. What's the most likely scenarios?
Yeah.
Wastewater plant?
Yeah.
Oh, there's not, well, I guess you could bust the padlock off the access hatch and get in if you wanted, but that would be kind of stupid. You could break the outlet where... I'm not suggesting that any of this wording is even close to ready to prime time. I would suggest multiple iterations on the wording. It's more you know, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? So, for example, I say in this particular, we're using this one as example, trespassers will not be prosecuted because we'll never catch them. So why say it? Because everybody knows, try and catch me. So I would like to use all these opportunities, these touch points with the public to educate, inform, justify expenditure.
Well, I guess for the trespassing one, I think having a sign there gives the police the authority to do something about it if we have a warning. Like if they were caught in the act of something, then the police can act on it. But if
I don't think you need a sign to do that, quite frankly. I think, you know, the law is the law. The sign is independent of the sign. But yeah, I mean, it does put people on notice. But what is it? I'm not proposing we have this debate now. I mean, the question is, what are we actually trying to accomplish with our signage?
I think it's an opportunity to brand the village with a cohesive look and a cohesive, you know, it ties the whole place together. If you see signs, whether they're warning signs or information signs that all kind of look the same, it just takes it to the next level.
Funnily enough, I mean, I've been in places where somebody obviously applied some thought. You know, little towns all the way up and down I-5 where you turn in to go and find coffee. And you've done the same, Fred. I mean, you travel I-5 all the time as well. Some look like nobody cares, and some looks like somebody cares. And I'd like to be one of the latter communities. So the uniformity thing is exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
What the actual wording is, oh, yeah, that's...
But at this point, I don't see uniformity. I see a lot of different aesthetics from sign to sign. That would be my only comment, is that if we are going to go through the exercise of paying for all these new signs, try and have a cohesive aesthetic, whether that's a color theme or a material theme, whether they're all on wood or whatever it is. But that would it would give the message that we care about this place, and that it's...
Yeah, so in my slight defense, I'm sort of presenting options here. In fact, in the wayfinding signage, these are three different ways of looking at the same thing, you know, whether it's brown or green or... I see, for example, West Van has chosen a white sign with a red point. And I can't say I like that very much. First of all, it's hard to read, and second of all, it looks too municipal.
Well, I like your suggestion for signs on the various rooms and stuff like that. That looks nice. And I think we're in the woods, so we should have sort of a woodsy theme.
Yeah.
Actually, you may be surprised to hear this, but changing the name of this place, once we have the council chambers upstairs to Two Sisters Meeting Room, I think is novel and kind of fun. I like it.
Well, yeah, I had thought Two Sisters, well, that needs to go to the community anyway, but I had thought that would be the Historical Society room, he said, pointing, and this one would become something else.
Just part of the office, isn't it? 'Cause we're
Conference room,
adding
yeah.
An office here and a conference room.
Yeah, so this would be called conference room.
Oh, I thought this was the one we were
But
going to...
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it kind of has a tie to the history
Well,
of the
thanks.
whole area.
So could one not tie this aesthetic through all the signs?
Yeah, maybe. No, this is actually supposed to indicate sandblasted wood. I mean, actual wood.
Sure.
Yeah. Hadn't thought of that.
My comment on that would be, it would be nice to see consistency with the existing sign out front, which is the
Big one.
the big sanded
Smiley
cedars
face.
with the raised silver lettering for the signage that around the office.
I have no particular desire there, although the only objection to that would be that that's expensive. And we're trying to fit it into a $15,000 budget. So the other thing is, you know, there's lots of comments here on should we put times on. You know, some of these things, I think if you have a paper plan and then adhere to it, you're more than halfway there. But, well, I also point out that the font on that sign is the wrong font. But I know you want to revisit the font situation too, so that's also fine.
What's the font on the raised silver raised
I think
lettering?
that's Gill Sans.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
it's not Calibri.
It's not Calibri. Somebody will know. Ooh, and maybe that becomes the standard font. I'm quite happy to. I mean, this is all in Calibri, obviously. But that's maybe one level of detail more than we need to go. I think right now I'm looking for some sort of understanding. Do we want to undertake this exercise, which is not insubstantial in terms of spend or time, because these signs all have to be put up. And so there'll be an in-kind component as well, right now?
A public works time, but
Yeah.
but that's, as Pam has pointed out to me, already budgeted for. It's just a
Good
task
answer.
that we do. And
Excellent answer. Mayor Burr, I actually think we are having a discussion on this, and I think you, unless my colleagues raise their hand quickly, there is agreement to this. And I think Norm's point, the continuity is the one that's really resonated. I mean, you know, Fred's go, no go. Okay, well, you know, so I would think that, because there's too many choices here, I think if you come up with your best and final kind of thing,
Okay.
that would work for me, because then it's an easy yes, no, the budget's already set, it's already built in the budget to implement the stuff. Short of some creative name wrinkles, it looks like, you know, you're rounding third base here.
Just from sort of a technical, what can be done, you know, most of these signs are, what are the thin aluminum,
yeah,
kind
pointing.
of bolted.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can print on aluminum these days. So
Yeah.
you could do a wood grain with the same color of font or whatever you want to do that matches what you have out front. So the options are there to do all that on aluminum, so the guys are familiar with the installation techniques, and
Yeah.
it's not something new to mount. It's just the same thing, but it's just a different color combo. And,
I like that.
yeah.
I like that thinking.
Yeah.
What about the wayfinding signage?
I like it a lot. I like the whole package, actually. The only thing, and if you could circle this, is just page 71 of 90, and perhaps staff, it doesn't have to be debated amongst all of us, but staff and you could make the call on this one. But I'm looking at the third sign, which is the neighborhood one, 1909, and I can almost hear former Mayor Broughton saying it about 150 times over the council meetings that Brunswick Beach is the old name before the amalgamation, and it's technically known as Brunswick now. And I'm not sure whether she was correct or not, but I think we might want to make sure that the residents are happy with this sign in front of their house.
Where do we
Absolutely.
live now? I thought we lived somewhere
Well,
else.
I mean, actually, we could do it, but, you know, let's get it abuse from the sentence.
Well, these are the sorts of things that need to be flagged, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think there would be any officialdom attached to that. It would simply be a public consultation
Yep.
process. going
Well, yeah,
forward.
I mean, Mayor Broughton, of course, was involved in the negotiations, so she had her slew on the matter.
Oh, she would know.
So I'm
Yeah.
just raising that as, let's cover that little hole.
Well, my thinking would be once we get to some sort of consensus in terms of look and feel, wording, we'd mock up quite a few of these signs, full size, on Coroplast, and stick it in the Two Sisters room, or the hall, and have an unmanned pole where, I think I even started at the back,
Yep,
where you'd have some sort of, you know, what do you think of this?
may get non-survey feedback,
Yeah.
live feedback, I like that.
To, you know, so comment on the wording, comment on the everything, and it would be on a pole, boof. Would you like the brown one, the green one, or the blue one? Do you like this logo or that logo? Okay, so how do we want to do this? It obviously needs to go through multiple iterations. I'm just liking everything Norm's saying so much that I think Norm should take the next cut at it.
Very skillful. You don't know, rookie, I like it.
Yeah. Do you want to? Do you want
I
to do
don't
this
mind.
one by one, or do you want to go around? So the comments that are on here are yours and Nye's. Is that right, Peter?
Mine, any input from Nye as well.
I'll just point out to council that in terms of other documents that have come back commented to me from those two stalwart individuals, this is nothing.
We're learning.
Maybe I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, this is the ultimate in buy-in, consideration, and cooperation. So I'd like to see, I guess where I'm going with that is I'd like to see a bit more in terms of not a good idea to put signs on the water thing. Although, just about the water thing, there's some sort of stipulated requirement to have signage because of the grant.
Yeah, my understanding is that's why they were at the kiosks.
Yeah.
So, but
So we need to change that wording because right now the kiosk thing says this water plant.
Yeah.
Looks around for water plant.
We have actually moved those up to the fence at the treatment plant, so they're on the fence outside the treatment plant.
Oh, so it does currently identify that it's a water treatment plant.
Those exact signs have been moved up there, yeah.
With incorrect data, by the way.
Correct.
When you actually look up the terms of the grant.
Yeah, I don't know who made the original signs, so I just assumed the
He
data
knows.
was correct.
He knows. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so why don't we do it that way? Iterate through each of us. So one document, multiple comments.
Yeah, I only want to see the double final. I don't want
Fine. Fred, you had some comments, so it'll go via you.
Should I just hand it to you then if you want?
Sure,
I've got some
yeah.
chicken scratch.
So
in terms of marketing, which you hit here, just mentally thinking of our calendar, if things go according to plan this evening, I think January the 30th is a community thing. And then there's one for sometimes in February, which is the follow-up. And there's a big gap until the Easter, which would be the outdoor event. So to get people into the hall, what's our natural draw?
my thinking was that this would be promulgated and you could come, that it would be open up there.
I suppose we could stick them on where the sandwich board is too, create some buzz, mock
Yep.
them up there.
Well, no, I'm thinking this is because there's going to be paper for a survey and there's going to be signs mocked up on paper.
We're going to get a meaningful number of people in with live bodies in.
we could just put a sign post out here on the bank and order a set for people to look at and comment on.
I mean, I'm raising it because I think it's, as we think, using the most recent survey, which is the beach survey, the numbers really trundled in and
Yeah.
blew up at the end. And with an expectation that the budget's in hand, sunshine is coming, and we want this done for late spring.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's got to be an accelerated, it's not a marketing thing, it's just getting people's point of view.
Peter, what do you think?
So you need an event or this event.
So we have a public information meeting at the end of the month and then an actual public hearing. Do we even know when that is?
It's set, the dates are set.
Yeah, it was February 22nd.
Yeah, something like that, 23rd is.
Yeah, well,
But you don't want to do any of this stuff at a public hearing.
No.
But
I don't really want to mix this with the public consultation on the 30th.
no,
So what is
but
it we'd be asking of the public?
I think
feedback. Do they like it?
So-
What
Do they like
words
it?
do they want? Do they want to call it Brunswick or Brunswick Beach?
Just for that one sign?
No,
all of it.
How
so.
long?
To do all of them, like
You're not
I'm
gonna
thinking
like
that
your
we
question.
have something on the website that invites people to review and to make comments.
Just review this document.
Either this document or a second
PDF
version,
like
a
A
new
web
version
equivalent,
of it.
yeah, with
Um,
links and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just not quite sure how to set that up, but
Well, we just do the mock-ups and put them onto PDF.
Yeah,
and then how would they comment?
Create a web form
Mm-hmm.
right on our website. We
Well, if we
record.
give everybody a month to do it and Carl beat on it every Friday.
yeah. I'm just wondering how effective that will be for the kind of people who don't read the Friday email or do the web thing. I still think we need a sort of a hard copy version.
Well, could
But I like Nia's idea of just doing some mock-ups and stick them here. This is what it would look like.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
put the PDF at the front desk with forms like we did
Yeah.
for signing up for the,
Mm.
The paper
the
equivalent of
village
the survey.
alert.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, well let's.
We could be proactive and go to the groups that are in the hall. Let's, pick the Tai Chis that are in there. There's, 25 people there. The volleyball, there's 8 or 10 there. I don't know.
Yeah, that tends to be the converted. You're preaching to the choir there. It's new people. There's people in the village who will be impacted by this because they bought into this $2.5 million price point, a house that they've just acquired. They will be concerned about this kind of stuff.
Well, or
When
the
you
more
say this kind of
granular
stuff,
folks
it's
that
very
say, I'd much rather have my ditch done by Public Works than having a sign down the road.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, we have to make the brave decision. Sorry.
Do we want to give them 40 pieces, specific things to make decisions on, or do we want to boil it down to 3 samples of an aesthetic? This is what the sign may look like. These
I like
are 3 color schemes. Give them 3 options to pick.
Yep.
or vote on, as opposed to every six. I mean, you're gonna get.
Well, this is a
It's
lot.
too much
to-
information
not-
for people to
I mean,
digest.
But this
asking
is-
people to become mini councils here and go through this, and staff's already done a bunch of work on this, so, I mean, do you really want more and more and more, because, you know, versus color and,
Some need to be consulted, like the entrance logs, the neighborhood signs, that we definitely need to just clear that through the people who care. So Brunswick people need to opine on what they want. But others can be done in a closed group, like the Bear Smart sign. There's only one person who, two people who care about that, me and Norma. The water treatment plant, I'd like to replace that sign because it's just factually wrong. And I like, Norm's correct, we want to get this look and feel, this brand, you call it brand. But maybe we don't do much more than that. But I think you're right. So we provided choice of theme. I don't think they can all be log signs, but something, maybe, you know, there's an information type sign, that's the white one. There's directional type signs, that's the blue one. And there's naming type signs, which is the wood one, except for stream names, which are subject to the MU, MCD, MCU, DECM, and that has to be green.
Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Okay, what he said.
Well, essentially, we would have to break it down into two. You'd want input on style and design, then there's a whole different issue about the wording.
Yes. So I think, Norm, since you're going to be taking the next cut at this, maybe if you could just step one level up and think, you know, what is actually the syntax here? We have three kinds of sign, like there are three kinds of traffic sign: regulatory, informational, and
Direction.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. And so we have our taxonomy there, and this is what they look like. So in the road traffic analog, directional are white on blue, prohibitory are black on yellow, I think, maybe, I don't know. It's a long time since I did a driver's test.
Those are governed by not the MUTCD, they're governed by the Motor Vehicle Act.
Something like it. So we need
Yeah.
our
Sorry.
signage equivalent of the
Yeah.
Motor Vehicle Act.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you get where I'm going. I mean, you know, we're just trying to get kind of standard taxonomy, so when the next sign comes up, we say it falls into this classification, this is what it's going to look like. And then you dicker about the wording, and then you're done. So, not to cast stones, for example, we have some salt barrels out here, and the wording is road salt, not for private use. This standard would say that the wording is road salt for public use only. Same message, different wording. Or not. Maybe it is. Maybe it does say no private use. I would prefer to see for public use only. Hey, wow, public road salt. That sort of means that you can go and take a scoop and throw it on the road if you want. Okay, so what have we decided? That we're going to recommend. Is this a recommendation to council?
Mm-hmm.
That council proceed with this, and we'll do an iterative look. So I've generated, staff's commented, you'll be the next commenter, and your comments will come in green or yellow or blue, whatever they are, just in Word.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with the language of the signs and more so with the cohesive message.
Okay, so
or aesthetic. So,
and I think I speak a little bit to that in here in terms of, yes, under the details. So maybe you should flesh that thing out. And I do present, you know, is it centered? Is it right justified? Where does the logo go? Is there a logo? What logo? I had proposed to Peter to make his blood run cold that we consider a logo redesign as well this year, because. But that's pretty much what we said.
That'll be a storm brewing, all right.
Exactly. So we're not going to do that this year.
Go with the stream, grasshopper. The stream.
Okay, so that's the recommendation. Can the committee opine on that? Can I have a motion? Thanks, and a second on that one.
And I think we need a timing for, or either we discuss it now, we need a plan here.
I think this will become the plan, and we'll try and put some dates on it.
Okay, and I think unfortunately suggested timetable is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my secret thinking is that it will.
2 weeks. The next council meeting for them.
Yeah. No, the turnaround on this must be quick. But my thinking is this will all form part of the parking signage. Yeah. So we've got people going around with all the necessary poles, ballasts, bolts, everything, and it all just gets done at the same time, in time for late spring. Would that work?
Yeah, it would work. It's going to take some time and some doing.
Oh,
but
sure.
yeah.
And that means we don't go out twice. We don't dig up the roads twice.
Yeah.
You got your beard shaved.
I did.
Hey,
I
we knew
did.
something was different.
You know,
Yeah.
I was thinking, yeah, that's a crisp looking shirt. I think, oh,
Well,
no,
thank you.
I can see it now.
Should we take a motion on which one we prefer?
Can you send me the word?
Was it a
Yeah.
balancing or did you get it too full good?
I don't know. You're gonna have to. It's something like. No, you're gonna have to take it off the table. Although Peter wrote it down.
Okay.
So what I've got is that the CSC recommends council to proceed with community signage project to be refined for color, format, themes, and
Wording.
budget.
Wording.
And wording. With budget.
Set at
from
15.
Budget. 15,000. Any reference to where it's coming from, or? that
Well,
15?
yeah, with iterative revisions.
No, with budget of 15,000 from the remainder of the parking signs.
Well, it's in the budget already.
Yeah.
Yes, not 15, but we can bump it up and we can look at that tonight.
Well, it's close enough. Yeah. And then if you want to say something about how the revision's going to take place, iterative revisions through council members that want to see it, and then final approval.
I don't think that needs to be.
Okay,
part
fine.
of
If
the
you don't need it, that's
resolution.
fine. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, that's great. I think I'm learning too. So I mean, I think the idea here came across is exactly what Norm so succinctly said. It's to try and get a brand going here. Really, to look like we care. Okay, so shall we move on that one? Do you like my no smoking, no vaping, no sign?
Excellent.
Took me a long time to find an icon of the doobie.
I would think those would be.
Yeah, you'd think.
these days.
You'd think. Although, let me just tell you a sad story, not really germane to the topic of the meeting, but my daughter, as you know, is 15. My son is 14. The kid who plays on his soccer team and baseball team last year, his best friend, died yesterday after taking one hit from a vape that had fentanyl in it. They bought the juice, they call it, at from a dealer at Rockridge. One hit, fell down there in front of his friends
This was when?
yesterday.
I've never heard of that being in the vape juice.
I didn't know. Why would you do it? Why would you go to the trouble as a dealer to stick fentanyl in juice? You know, which is normally cinnamon or strawberry or... Anyway, so, nice kid. Except he's dead now. And it's got nothing to do with how well you brought up or... The guys are standing around, hey, take a... That's a bit of a wake-up call. Okay, so that wasn't on the agenda, so we'll move on to... Nothing. Is that it?
That's it for now.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made. Can I have a second? Thanks. Any discussion on that? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Right, that's one of the quicker...
Now.